can only pray the world's change one heart at a time. Empires fall when just one soldier leaves the line. Even love finds one heart at a time. Hearts can change, but can change start in mine.
Hi everybody, it's Danny Schur, composer, producer, co-writer of the Stan movie musical. Welcome to Musical Mondays. Today's episode, what makes great melody? You just heard and saw Laura Slade Wiggins, who plays Rebecca Almazoff in the Stan movie musical, singing the song One Heart at a Time, which we're going to break down today. I always say that writing great melodies is like solving a Rubik's Cube. You're simultaneously thinking on different planes as you twist and turn all these elements into a winning outcome. So stick around to the end of this video because I promise tools, techniques to make you a writer of great melody. Okay, let's just out and say it. A lot of today's melodies kind of suck. They're getting dressed up with production and arrangement, and that's cool. And it can make hit songs, but it doesn't make classics, and it doesn't make your career as a songwriter have longevity. And that's not just me. My kids, who are 21 and 17, are currently vibing on the great writers of melody. My 21-year-old daughter's really into Billy Joel. My 17-year-old son is really into Queen. Both of those writers of classic great melodies. And I was inspired to make this video after watching a video called The Death of Melody. The Death of Melody was made by Oscar Osiski. And I have to say I was so dismayed that we could be talking about the death of melody as if songwriters didn't actually want to be writing great melodies anymore. So this video actually advances the thesis that what's wrong with melody writing is that a generation has not actually been taught how to write great melody. It's quantifiable, it's learnable, and we need to learn it just like every other part of music education. Okay, so I promised the tools and the techniques. Here's the tools. The toolbox for melody writing is surprisingly small. There's only three things: steps, skips, and rhythmic motifs. That's it. Steps, also known as a scalic approach, notes that are close together, a semitone or a tone, and that suits the human voice because we tend to sing in small steps. Da, 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 da. Skips, or the intervallic approach, is especially dramatic when we want to add some passion, like in a chorus when you need to do that. And the third tool is rhythmic motifs. Motifs are just repeating patterns, usually pretty short, 1 or 2 bars long. Here's an example. See the pattern there? Bum, bum, ba da ba da bum, ba da ba ba. Varying in pitch area as it goes through the progression. So that's rhythmic motifs. So we've got our three things in the toolbox. Then we have the techniques for employing them. So the first technique, repetition versus change-up. We use repetition to establish the catchiness of something and then change it up once it's going to get boring. But that constant play between repeating just enough till it's boring and then changing it up, that's the first technique. The second technique, sometimes called question and answer, or yin and yang, or precedent and antecedent. It's the premise of setting up a musical statement which has a musical answer. Then there's leaps for interest. Remember we talked about interplay between steps and skips, or scalic and intervallic. Leaps for interest are a particularly cool concept to take an otherwise scalic step melody and inject some little interest from leaps. Those leaps can be dissonant and make the ear go, ooh, which are kind of the spice of melody writing, but they're super important. And then the fourth technique, which is the most vital, structural melody. The structure refers to using a spine of notes, usually relatively close, from which you vary just enough, but the underlying spine makes the listener want to hear the melody go in a certain place. So it's sort of pre-programmed to be memorable by virtue of that structure. So that's toolbox. That's 4 techniques So now let's take an in-depth look at the song one heart at a time and see these principles in play and that constant Rubik's Cube of moving until you got something that's better and hopefully great. Here we go. Okay, so here's how the verses start. It's a very simple pattern of... That's the structural undertone of the verse. A minor, G major, F major, going to E major, the 5 chord of the A minor. Million songs written like that. Our rhythmic motif is going to be bum ba da 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 da. The song's in 3/4, so 1 2 3 1 2 3 dum ba da ba ba dum is our rhythmic pattern, which will follow until we change. Now we put that rhythmic pattern in of bum ba da ba ba dum. Now, answer to that conversational bum ba da ba ba dum is... Okay, so that's our spine. That's the structural melody. Then here's the rhythmic pattern. Answer. Now we could just leave it at that, but here's how we use leaps for interest. Check this out. So instead of just dum ba dum bum ba dum, we go dum ba dum bum ba dum. See those little leaps of... And that pattern of ba dum ba dum ba dum becomes its own pattern that will repeat elsewhere. Now we have... And for our answer phrase, instead of... we go... See, and all of a sudden it's leading to a different place. And now we're going to do an answer phrase to that phrase. Same pattern, different note area. So here's our change up from the repetition. And now here's that jumping interval pattern. See that? Da-dum, bum, ba-dum. Now that's leading to something different. Here is a very direct structural melody. So what do we have there? Same rhythmic pattern. Bum 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 ba bum, bum 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 ba bum, ba bum bum ba bum. Changing the rhythm up entirely to something really quick. So let's check out what we got by watching the clip.
I'm as guilty as those whose ancient disputes come to blows. But what would I prove with a move that would lash out at foes? My fist wants to try an eye for an eye, but reason begs me to slow. I can only pray that...
Now comes the chorus. Here we're going to employ the tested rule of chorus writing, leaps for interest, but also structural leaps. You'll see in a second. Before, our rhythm was bum ba da ba ba dum ba dum bum ba dum bum ba dum. In the choruses, we slow it down. We stretch out that rhythm and start a different pattern of dum bum bum bum. And now the answer to that. And then a repetition with a different ending. So what makes those leaps structural? Remember, we're dealing with the chords A minor, G major, F major. Those leaps outline the chords of A minor, G major, F major. A minor leap outlines the F chord, then the G, C. It's outlining the chords that we're already used to hearing, which just reinforces its memorability, coupled with that rhythmic pattern of. So see, we're employing all the things at once. A little bit of scales, a little bit of leaps for interest, repetition, change-ups, structural melody, all of these things happening simultaneously as we craft the melody. So now let's put all of that together and watch the clip in its entirety so you can see how it all flows.
I'm as guilty as those whose ancient disputes come to blows. But what would I prove with a move that would lash out at foes? My fist wants to try an eye for an eye, but reason begs me to slow. I can only pray the worlds change one heart at a time. Empires fall when just one soldier leaves the line. Even love finds one heart at a time. Hearts can change, but can change start in mine.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification button. And if you liked the song One Heart at a Time from the Stan Movie Musical, you can buy it on Apple Music, download only. Thanks very much. See you again.